They mocked the 22-year-old farm boy for flying his P-47 into thunderstorms during training, called it cowardice dressed up as tactics. His own flight commander wrote in his evaluation, "Refuses to engage in clear conditions when provided opportunity," until October 9, 1943, when his hiding delivered 47 B-17s through a gauntlet of 60 Luftwaffe fighters over Kiel, and not one American bomber fell to enemy guns on the return leg. Second Lieutenant James "Jimmy" Harwell, 78th Fighter Group, 84th Fighter Squadron, Duxford Airfield, England. October 9, 1943. Cloud ceiling, 800 feet. Visibility, quarter mile in rain. Temperature, 38 degrees Fahrenheit. Strategic situation, catastrophic. The 8th Air Force had just lost 60 bombers in 1 week. Luftwaffe fighter tactics were evolving faster than American doctrine could adapt. The October 9th raid on Kiel's U-boat pens was supposed to be precision daylight bombing, America's doctrinal advantage. Instead, weather turned it into a navigator's nightmare and a fighter pilot's execution ground. Harwell's idea, using weather as tactical cover rather than obstacle, had been rejected by his squadron CO twice. The Fighter Command Manual explicitly stated, "Maintain visual contact with bombers at all times. Separation in clouds creates vulnerability." Only 3 P-47 pilots in theater had attempted deliberate cloud combat. 2 died in mid-air collisions. 1 returned with his wingman dead after flying into his tail. The stakes, 47 B-17s, 470 crewmen. Intelligence estimated 60-plus B-109s and FW-190s staging from 3 airfields. 0 margin for navigation error. 0 tolerance for lost bombers. This declassified mission report, sealed until 1987, documents a tactical innovation that fundamentally altered fighter escort doctrine. Understanding the split-second decisions made at 18,000 feet inside freezing clouds with no visual reference and a fuel gauge dropping toward the red provides insight into how aerial combat evolved when regulations met reality. To understand why Jimmy Harwell saw weather as an ally when every manual called it an enemy, and why his commanders nearly grounded him for it, we return to Grundy County, Iowa, population 1,247. In the spring of 1921. James Arthur Harwell, born April 3, 1921, third son of a corn farmer who ran 180 acres with 3 mules and a prayer for rain. The Harwell family wasn't poor by Depression standards. They owned their land, but prosperity meant new work boots every 2 years and meat 3 times a week. Jimmy's father, Frank, had flown observation planes in the Great War. Never talked about it, kept a single photograph, himself standing beside a de Havilland DH-4, somewhere in France, face unreadable. But Frank Harwell taught his sons something unusual for Iowa farm boys: weather obsession. Not farmers' weather, the kind that meant rain for crops, pilot's weather, wind direction at different altitudes, cloud formation sequences. The smell of air before a thunderstorm, which Frank said was different at 5,000 feet than ground level. He'd stand in the yard during storms, Jimmy's younger brother Robert recalled in a 1989 interview. Dad would be yelling about the corn getting flattened, and Jimmy would be staring up into the clouds, asking Dad if that formation was cumulonimbus or nimbostratus. Drove Dad crazy until he realized Jimmy had memorized the weather chapter from his old flight manual. The seed was planted in summer 1934. Jimmy was 13. A barnstormer named Carl Henderson brought a Waco biplane to Grundy County's annual fair. $5 rides. Frank Harwell, in a rare moment of extravagance, paid for Jimmy to go up. Standard flight, 15 minutes, few lazy turns over the farmland, except Henderson flew through a small cumulus cloud on the descent. Jimmy later wrote in his pilot cadet application essay, "In 5 seconds, there was nothing. No horizon, no ground, no sky. just gray and the sound of the engine. Mr. Henderson never changed his control position. The plane didn't know it was blind. When we came out, we were exactly where we should be. That's when I understood. If the pilot knows where he is, weather doesn't matter. His squadron mates would later call this his superpower, spatial awareness without visual reference. But in 1934, it was just a farm kid's obsession. He spent the next 7 years reading everything about instrument flying he could find. The Grundy County Library had 6 aviation books. Jimmy read them until the spines cracked. He built balsa models focused not on aesthetics but control surfaces, testing how elevator trim affected recovery from spins, how rudder position changed turn radius. His high school shop teacher, Mr. Vernon, remembered, "Other boys built cars. Jimmy built a working gyroscope from a bicycle wheel and asked if I thought it could replace a turn coordinator." He was 16. December 8, 1941. Jimmy Harwell walked into the Army recruitment office in Waterloo, Iowa. 20 years old, 6'1", 165 pounds. Passed the physical, scored 94th percentile on spatial reasoning tests, accepted to aviation cadet training. Reported to Santa Ana Army Airfield, California, January 1942. Primary training, Stearman PT-17s. Jimmy was competent, not exceptional. His instructors noted adequate stick and rudder skills and exceeds requirements in navigation. But basic training at Gardner Field, California, revealed the obsession. BT-13, Valiant Trainers, the Volti vibrator, loud, heavy, honest, equipped with basic instruments, airspeed indicator, altimeter, turn and bank indicator, magnetic compass. Standard curriculum included hood training. Student wore a fabric hood that blocked outside view, forcing reliance on instruments. 10 hours required. Most cadets hated it. Disorientation was common. Air sickness frequent. Jimmy Harwell requested extra hood time. His logbook shows 47 hours of instrument training, nearly 5 times the requirement. He practiced unusual attitudes under the hood, inverted, nose-high stalls, snap rolls, then recovered using only instruments. His instructor, Marcus Webb, wrote in his training report, "Cadet Harwell displays unusual confidence in instrument flight, bordering on preference for non-visual conditions. Recommended limiting his hood time to prevent over-specialization. Demerits issued for unauthorized practice of instrument approaches below minimums." The demerits came after Jimmy, during a solo flight, deliberately entered a small cumulus cloud at 4,000 feet and performed a complete 360-degree turn inside it, emerging exactly on his original heading. Webb grounded him for 2 days. "I wasn't trying to be clever," Jimmy said in a 1979 interview. "I wanted to know if what I'd read was true, that you could navigate by time and turn rate without seeing anything. It was. But nobody cared about that. They cared that I'd broken the rule about cloud avoidance." His classmates thought he was odd. Not unfriendly, Jimmy was well liked, but peculiar. While others talked about dogfighting and gunnery, Jimmy asked instructors about weather forecasting and radio navigation. He'd ask questions like, "If you're in clouds and your compass tumbles, how do you know which way is north?" recalled classmate Robert Chen. Nobody cared. We wanted to shoot down zeros. Jimmy wanted to fly blind and still know where he was. Advanced training. P-47 Thunderbolts at Richmond Army Airfield, Virginia, March 1943. The Republic P-47 Thunderbolt, 17,500 pounds fully loaded, 2,000 horsepower Pratt & Whitney R2800 radial engine, 8.50 caliber machine guns, 425 rounds per gun. Massive, durable, fast in a dive, but at altitude, in a turning fight, it was a truck trying to dance. Jimmy loved it. The P-47 was honest, he said. It told you exactly what it would and wouldn't do. Heavy controls meant you felt every input. In clouds, that mattered. You couldn't ham-fist a Thunderbolt and wonder why it wasn't doing what you wanted. June 1943, 2nd Lieutenant Harwell arrived at Duxford Airfield, England. Assignment, 78th Fighter Group, 84th Fighter Squadron, the Falcons. The 78th had been flying escort missions since April. Doctrine was clear: stay close to the bombers, maintain visual contact, engage enemy fighters only when they threatened the bomber formation. Losses were mounting. 8th Air Force bomber crews called the channel between England and Germany the meat grinder. Without escort for the full mission, P-47s had limited range. Bombers were massacred. With escort, losses were reduced, but still brutal. Fighter tactics were evolving. Luftwaffe pilots had learned to engage American escorts at high altitude, drawing them away from bombers, then hitting the formations with a second wave. Or they'd wait until weather separated escorts from bombers, then strike during the chaos of visual reacquisition. Weather was the enemy. That was doctrine. That was experience. That was written in blood. Jimmy Harwell disagreed. July 18, 1943. Training flight. Weather deteriorated. Classic English summer storm. Ceiling dropped to 1,000 feet. Squadron was ordered to abort and return to base individually, navigating by compass and clock. Jimmy requested permission to practice interception procedures in the clouds. His flight leader, Captain Donald Pike, denied it. "Stay out of the soup, Harwell. That's how you kill yourself and whoever's nearby." Jimmy complied, verbally. His logbook shows he diverted slightly off course and spent 8 minutes inside a towering cumulus, practicing radar vector intercepts using only compass, clock, and turn-and-bank indicator. He emerged exactly where he'd calculated, 5 miles south of Duxford, lined up on final approach. Captain Pike found out. Called him into the briefing room. He asked me what the hell I thought I was doing, Jimmy recalled. I told him I was testing whether escort could maintain position on bombers without visual reference. He said that's what radar was for. I said, radar tells you where you are. It doesn't tell you how to fly formation in clouds at 250 miles per hour without hitting your wingman. Pike's response, recorded in squadron records: "Your initiative is noted. Your judgment is questionable. Cloud flying is for transport pilots, not fighters." Clear? But Pike added something else, off the record, mentioned years later by Jimmy. He said, "If you ever figure out how to make weather work for us instead of the Krauts, I'll buy you a case of scotch. Until then, fly where I can see you." August and September 1943, Jimmy flew 18 escort missions, 0 kills. Solid pilot, no heroics, but his squadron mates noticed he'd vanish during cloud transits for 15-20 seconds, then reappear exactly in position. "It was eerie," said wingman Lieutenant Paul Driscoll. "We'd hit clouds, everyone would tighten up, white-knuckling to not lose sight of each other. Jimmy would just disappear, then pop out ahead of us, waving us forward like he'd known where the cloud ended. The skepticism wasn't about his skill, it was about risk. We respected Jimmy," Driscoll continued, "but his tactic, if you could call it that, required trust that he wouldn't get us killed. And in summer 43, trust was a luxury. We'd lost 6 pilots in 3 weeks." By October 1943, American fighter escort doctrine was a product of painful lessons. Standard procedure for bomber escort missions: maintain visual contact with the bomber formation at all times. Fly in a fluid 4 formation, 2 pairs of fighters, each pair mutually supporting, spaced for flexibility but close enough for visual confirmation. When weather intervened, clouds between escorts and bombers, the protocol was clear: maintain altitude and heading, trust radar controllers to vector you back to the formation, avoid maneuvering that could cause disorientation or collision. This wasn't arbitrary. May 14, 1943, P-47s from the 4th Fighter Group became separated from their bomber formation in clouds over the Netherlands. Attempting to rejoin visually, 2 flights converged from opposite directions inside a cloud bank. Result? 1 mid-air collision. 2 pilots dead. The bombers they were supposed to protect lost 11 aircraft to FW-190s during the confusion. June 22, 1943, 56th Fighter Group. A pilot attempting aggressive maneuvering in clouds to intercept reported enemy fighters became spatially disoriented, entered a spin, and failed to recover. Impact site: English Channel. The Fighter Command Manual update issued July 1943 was explicit. Pilots will not engage in combat maneuvering while inside clouds. Visual reference is mandatory for safe operation in proximity to friendly aircraft. Weather separation from bomber formations will be corrected via radar vector, not pilot initiative. The P-47's characteristics reinforced this doctrine. Republic P-47D Thunderbolt. Empty weight, 10,000 pounds. Combat weight, 14,000 to 17,500 pounds, depending on fuel and ordnance.
Wing loading, 35 pounds per square foot, high. Worse maneuverability at low speeds. Roll rate, slow at high speeds due to control forces. Dive speed, excellent. 450 plus miles per hour. Turn radius, poor compared to BF-109 or FW-190. Cockpit visibility, good forward and sides, limited rear. Instruments, standard array plus radio compass. The P-47 was a bomber destroyer and energy fighter. You dove on the enemy, used speed and firepower, then extended away. In a sustained turning engagement, lighter German fighters had the advantage. Inside clouds, the P-47 was a potential widowmaker. Heavy controls meant you felt every input, yes, but overcorrection was easy. The big radial engine created torque forces that required constant trim adjustment. Without visual reference, pilots could enter unusual attitudes. Inverted, nose-low spiral, without realizing it until instruments screamed warnings. Doctrine said, avoid clouds. When unavoidable, minimize time inside. Never maneuver aggressively. Maintain straight and level flight. This doctrine had saved lives. It was written by men who'd watched friends die from spatial disorientation and mid-air collisions. Jimmy Harwell understood this. He also understood that doctrine assumed weather was a neutral variable, something to avoid but not weaponize. What if the opposite was true? Jimmy's observation wasn't born from recklessness. It came from physics and pattern recognition. August 29, 1943. Escort mission to Kassel, Germany. Weather deteriorated en route. Scattered cumulus clouds thickened into layers. The bomber formation climbed above the weather, standard procedure. The P-47's escorts climbed with them. At 22,000 feet, visibility was clear. The bombers were visible. Everything by the book. Then, the Luftwaffe appeared. 12 BF-109s diving from 28,000 feet. High cover, using the sun. Classic tactic. The P-47s turned to engage, climbing to intercept.
The BF-109s didn't commit. They climbed back up, forcing the P-47s to burn fuel and lose position relative to the bombers. When the escorts broke off to return to the formation, the 109s dove again. Repeat, repeat, repeat. It was a fuel drain tactic. Force the escorts to maneuver at high altitude, burning gas until they had to head home early, then hit the unescorted bombers. Jimmy watched this and had a thought. What if escorts used the clouds below as concealment? His logic, if American escorts descended into the cloud layer, then Luftwaffe fighters above couldn't visually track their position. If escorts couldn't be seen, then enemy fighters couldn't use the bait and extend tactic because they wouldn't know whether escorts were climbing to intercept or ignoring them. If radar controllers could vector escorts to enemy formations, then escorts could approach from unexpected angles, including from below, out of clouds, with speed and surprise. The physics made sense. P-47s were faster in dives. Ambushing from below, out of a cloud, gave energy advantage. Enemy fighters expecting escorts above would be looking the wrong direction. But there were massive problems. Problem 1. Navigation. Inside clouds, visual reference is 0. A 4-ship flight could scatter across 10 miles in 2 minutes if pilots couldn't hold formation on instruments alone. Problem 2. Collision. 4 P-47s, each weighing 10 tons, maneuvering in 0 visibility. 1 navigation error meant death. Problem 3. Fuel. Maneuvering in clouds required constant power adjustments. More throttle changes meant higher fuel consumption. Escorts already had minimal fuel margin. Problem 4. Radar limitations. Ground-based radar could see aircraft position, but vectoring 4 fighters to a moving target through clouds required precision coordination and pilot discipline. Problem 5. Doctrine. Every regulation, every training manual, every briefing said, "Don't do this." Jimmy didn't propose his idea formally. He knew the answer would be no. Instead, he tested it, quietly. September 1943. He had accumulated enough flight hours and trust
to occasionally fly solo navigation training missions. These were logged as instrument proficiency flights, authorized but flexible. Flight 1, September 12th. Solo. Objective: maintain precise heading and altitude inside clouds while performing standard rate turns. He climbed to 15,000 feet, found a large cumulus cloud and entered it. Set power at 2300 RPM, 35 inches manifold pressure. Airspeed 210 miles per hour. Standard rate turn 3 degrees per second. Coordinated with rudder. Timed with wristwatch. Turn left 90 degrees, 30 seconds. Hold straight for 1 minute. Turn right 90 degrees, 30 seconds. Exit cloud. Check heading. Result: 7 degrees off. Acceptable, but not combat effective. He repeated this flight 6 times over 2 weeks, refining his scan pattern: altimeter, airspeed, turn and bank, compass, back to altimeter. Never fixate on one instrument. Trust the needle, not your body. Flight 7, September 28th. 2-ship flight with his regular wingman, Lieutenant Paul Driscoll, briefed as formation practice. Jimmy's actual objective: test whether 2 aircraft could maintain visual formation inside a cloud by flying predictable, gentle maneuvers. They entered a large cumulus at 12,000 feet. Jimmy held straight and level. Driscoll flew loose formation, 50 feet away, slightly stepped down for visibility of Jimmy's aircraft silhouette. Inside the cloud, gray void. Driscoll later said, "I could barely see his outline. Just a dark shape, but he didn't wander. Straight as a rail, I followed his wings." They flew inside for 2 minutes, exited, still in formation. Driscoll: "What the hell was that about?" Jimmy: "Just wanted to see if it was possible." Driscoll: "It's possible. It's also insane. Don't ask me to do it in combat." Late September, Jimmy approached Captain Pike privately, explained the theory: use clouds as tactical cover, rely on radar vectoring, ambush from unexpected angles. Pike's response, recalled by Jimmy: "I see the logic. I also see the 50 ways it kills you. What happens when radar loses you? What happens when you exit the cloud right into a 109? What happens when your wingman gets disoriented and spins in?"
I've tested it. It's controllable. You've tested it in training, solo, with no one shooting at you. Combat is different. Then let me test it in combat. Denied. I'm not risking 4 pilots and 4 aircraft on a theory. If you bring this to group command, they'll ground you for unsafe thinking. Drop it. But Pike added, if circumstances ever force your hand, real combat necessity, use your judgment. But it's on you. October 9th, 1943, 0500 hours. Briefing room. Duxford Airfield. Mission: bomber escort for B-17s of the 91st and 381st Bomber Groups. Target: U-boat construction pens, Kiel, Germany. Total bombers: 47. Fighter escort: 32 P-47s from 78th Fighter Group, plus 24 from 56th Fighter Group. Weather report: cold front moving across the North Sea. Cloud ceiling at target, 800 to 1,200 feet. Overcast layers from 5,000 to 18,000 feet with embedded thunderstorms. Freezing level, 8,000 feet. Surface temperature over Germany, 38 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds, 25 knots from the west at altitude. This was bad weather, marginal for mission execution, but the strategic necessity overrode caution. German U-boat production was accelerating. The Atlantic convoy routes were bleeding. Every week of delay meant more merchant ships sunk. The mission was approved. Jimmy's assigned aircraft, P-47D-5-RE, serial 428545, nickname Cornhusker, painted on the cowling by his crew chief in recognition of Jimmy's Iowa origins. Maintenance status: green. Minor oil leak repaired previous day. Armament: 8.5 caliber M2 Browning machine guns, 3,400 rounds total, 425 rounds per gun, approximately 34 seconds of continuous fire. Fuel load: 305 gallons internal, plus one 150-gallon centerline drop tank. Total: 455 gallons. Combat radius: approximately 375 miles with reserve. Kiel was 340 miles from Duxford. Tight. 0620 hours. Pre-flight walk-around. Crew Chief Sergeant Tony Morelli: "She's tight, Lieutenant. Oil's good, ammo's loaded. Don't bend her." Jimmy climbed in, parachute strapped, harness tight, stick check, full deflection all directions. Rudder pedals, responsive, trim tabs, set for takeoff.
Engines start. The R-2800 coughed, caught, roared. 18 cylinders hammering. Jimmy let it warm up. Oil temperature climbing. Cylinder head temperature stabilizing. Radio check. Falcon Blue 3? Radio check. Response from Captain Pike, flight lead. Blue 3, you're loud and clear. Stay tight today. Weather's going to be a bastard. Jimmy. Copy lead. Tight. But he was thinking, weather's going to be an advantage if we use it right. 0642 hours. Takeoff. Falcon Squadron launched in 4 ship flights. Jimmy was Blue 3, second element, second position. His wingman, Lieutenant Paul Driscoll, Blue 4. Climb out heading, 070 degrees, toward the North Sea. Altitude, 12,000 feet initially, then climbing to mission altitude of 20,000 feet to rendezvous with bombers. Cloud layer entry, 3,500 feet. Immediate zero visibility. Formation Titan. Jimmy focused. Blue leads wingtip, 10 feet away. Hold position. Trust instruments. Cross-check with visual. 0658 hours. Broke out of the clouds at 21,000 feet. Clear above, scattered clouds below, but solid undercast beneath those. The 5,000 to 18,000 foot layer stretched to the horizon. They'd be flying above it. Bombers would be above it. 0715 hours. Rendezvous with bomber stream. 47 B-17s in staggered formation, stretched over 5 miles of sky. Combat boxes. Defensive formations designed for mutual gun support. Falcon Squadron took up escort position. 2,000 feet above the bombers, stepped out to the right, standard. 0740 hours. Crossing the German coast. Flak started. Black puffs at 18,000 feet. Inaccurate, but intimidating. Bombers held course. 0748 hours. Radio call from Falcon lead. Bogies, high, 11 o'clock, 6+. Jimmy looked. 6 contacts, maybe more. Small dots at 26,000 feet, angling in. Intel had predicted 20 to 30 Luftwaffe fighters. This was the first wave. 0749 hours. The bogies dove. Classic Luftwaffe tactic. BF-109s diving fast, aiming for the lead bomber box. Falcon lead. Blue flight, engage high. Red flight, stay with the bombers. Blue flight, Jimmy's flight, turned left, climbing to intercept. Throttle forward, 2,700 RPM, 52 inches manifold pressure, war emergency power. The R-2800 screamed.
The 109s saw them coming, split into 2 groups. 4 went defensive, climbing away, extending. 2 pressed the attack on the bombers. Classic bait. Draw off the escorts, hit the bombers during the confusion. Blue lead chased the 4 climbing 109s. Blue 2 followed. Jimmy, as Blue 3, followed. Docked, but he was watching the altimeter. 24,000 feet. 25,000. The 109s were faster in the climb. P-47s couldn't catch them. 0751 hours. The 2 109s attacking the bombers made their pass. Quick, snap rolled away, dove into the clouds below. Bomber gunners fired. No visible hits. Then a second wave appeared. This time, 12 contacts. Mixed BF-109s and FW-190s. Higher, 28,000 feet, diving toward the now separated escorts. Falcon lead. Blue flight, break right. Multiple bandits, 6 o'clock high. Jimmy broke right. Hard. G-forces slammed him into his seat. Gray edges on his vision. He looked back. FW-190s, 4 of them, slashing through Blue flight's formation. Cannon fire. Tracers. Blue 2 took hits. Smoke from his engine. Blue 2, Lieutenant Henderson. I'm hit. Oil pressure dropping. Breaking off. He dove toward England. 1 escort. Gone. 0753 hours. Situation deteriorated. The Luftwaffe fighters weren't committing to prolonged engagements. They were slashing, hit and extend. Climb back up, hit again, draining fuel, scattering escorts. Meanwhile, the bomber formation was holding course toward Kiel, but 2 more fighter waves were inbound per radar. Ground control was calling warnings. Falcon lead, Ramrod control, estimated 20+ bandits, Angels 2-5 converging your position from northeast. The bombers were 40 miles from target. Weather ahead, solid overcast from 8,000 to 18,000 feet. The bombers would have to descend through it for the bomb run. That meant the escorts would be above the clouds, the bombers below, separated. Perfect conditions for slaughter. Jimmy keyed his radio. Blue lead, Blue 3, request permission to descend into cloud layer and patrol below overcast.
Captain Pike, negative Blue 3.
Stay visual with the formation, Jimmy. Sir, the bandits are using high cover to scatter us. If we position below the clouds, we can intercept them when they dive on the bombers during the bomb run. Pike, you'll lose radar contact in the clouds. You'll lose us. Denied. Jimmy held formation, but his mind was calculating. The bombers would descend at 0810 hours, 17 minutes. The German fighters would wait until the bombers were below the clouds, vulnerable, separated from escorts. Then they'd pounce, unless someone was already there. 0758 hours. Another FW-190 slashed through. Blue leads snap-rolled to evade. Formation scattered. Jimmy made his decision. He keyed his mic. Blue 4, stay with me. Paul Driscoll. Where are we going? Jimmy. Down, into the clouds. We're going to be where they're not expecting us. Paul Driscoll. Jimmy, Pike's gonna string you up. Jimmy. Only if we don't come back. He rolled inverted. Pulled. Nose down. Throttle. Idle. The P-47 dove 400 miles per hour. 420. 440. Altimeter unwinding. 24,000. 22,000. 20,000. At 18,000 feet, he entered the clouds. Gray void. Instant zero visibility. Inside the clouds. No horizon. No visual reference. Just instruments and instinct. Jimmy immediately leveled off. Airspeed, 280 miles per hour. Power, 2200 RPM, 32 inches. Altitude, 17,500 feet. Holding. He glanced right. Driscoll's P-47 was there. Vague silhouette, maybe 30 feet away. Jimmy keyed the radio. Blue 4, listen carefully. Hold your heading. Don't chase me. Fly your instruments. If you lose sight of me, climb straight up until you're clear. Understood? Driscoll. Understood. This is insane. Jimmy. Probably.
Stand by. 10 seconds. Blue 3, we have your paint. You're offset 5 miles north of the bomber stream. Copy. Request vector to intercept bandits when they descend for bomb run attack. Another pause. Longer, then a different voice. Senior controller. Blue 3, this is Ramrod lead. Confirm you're requesting tactical vector while inside clouds with no visual reference? Affirmative. Blue 3, that's not procedure. Ramrod lead, procedure isn't working. They're chewing us up above the weather. They won't expect us below it. I can navigate on your vectors. Trust me. 10 seconds of silence. Then, Blue 3, Ramrod lead. Your funeral. Come right to heading 045. Maintain Angels 17. Bandits descending through 20,000. You're 12 o'clock, 15 miles. Jimmy turned right. Standard rate turn. Coordinated rudder. Held altitude. Heading 045. Airspeed 250 miles per hour. Fuel 240 gallons remaining. He'd burned the drop tank dry climbing out. Not great. Maybe 45 minutes at this power setting. Ramrod. Blue 3, bandits now at Angels 15. You're 12 o'clock, 10 miles. They're in the weather with you. Driscoll. Jimmy, we're blind. How are we supposed to find them? Jimmy, we won't. We'll intercept them when they exit below. Ramrod. What altitude is the cloud base? Ramrod. Estimated 7,000 feet at target area. Jimmy. Copy. Descending to Angels 8. He reduced power. Nose down. Descent rate 500 feet per minute. Controlled. Smooth. Altimeter 16,000, 14,000, 12,000. Gray. Endless gray. The only sound, the engine, reduced to a mutter, and his breathing inside the oxygen mask. 10,000 feet. Ramrod. Blue 3, bomber stream descending through Angels 1-2. Bandits converging from multiple vectors. You're going to have a crowd down there. Jimmy. How many? Ramrod. We count 16 separate contacts, maybe more. Hard to distinguish in the weather. 16 German fighters. 2 P-47s.
Jimmy, I know. Stay with me. 8,500 feet. Still inside clouds. Then 7,800 feet, the clouds began to thin. Gray shifted to lighter gray. Wisps. Streamers. 7,200 feet. Holes appeared. Blue sky below. No. Dark. Ground visible through gaps. 7,000 feet. Clear below the clouds. Jimmy's eyes adjusted. Visibility, 5 miles. Overcast ceiling above. Solid gray. Ground below. German countryside. Patchwork fields. And aircraft. 11 o'clock low. 3 BF-109s, 1,500 feet below, in trail formation, descending toward there, the bombers. B-17s breaking through the clouds in ragged formation, 6,000 feet, struggling to reform for the bomb run. The 109s were lining up for a beam attack, coming in from the side where bomber guns had limited coverage. They hadn't seen Jimmy. Jimmy. Blue 4, 11 o'clock low. 3 bandits. I'm engaging. Cover me high. Copy. I got your 6. Jimmy rolled left, pulled, nose down toward the lead 109. Airspeed building. 300 miles an hour. 320. 340. The 109 was focused on the bombers. Target fixation. 1,000 feet separation. 800. Jimmy armed his guns. 8 switches. Up. Gun sight illuminated. Range estimation. Closing fast. 600 feet. The 109 started his firing run on the bombers. Jimmy squeezed the trigger. 8.5 caliber guns roared. The P-47 shuddered. Tracers, every 5th round, arced toward the target. 2-second burst. 80 rounds. Hits. Sparks along the 109's fuselage. The canopy shattered. The aircraft snap-rolled left, violent, uncontrolled. Smoke poured from the engine. The 109 nosed over, diving, trailing fire. Impact 5,000 feet below. Explosion. Black smoke column rising. Ramrod control. Blue 3 Ramrod, good kill. You have multiple bandits now aware of your position. 4 contacts, you're 3 o'clock, same altitude. Jimmy looked right. 4 FW-190s turning toward him. They'd seen the tracers. Airspeed, 360 miles an hour. Energy advantage, good. Jimmy. Blue 4, break right, engage. Braking. The FW-190s split. 2 continued toward Jimmy. 2 turned toward Driscoll.
Head-on pass. The 2 190s were committed. Cannons flashing. 20-millimeter rounds snapped past Jimmy's canopy. 1 hit. Loud bang, starboard wing. Hole punched clean through. Jimmy held his trigger. Head-on gunnery. Low probability, but suppress their aim. Closure rate, 600 miles per hour combined. 3 seconds to impact. 2 seconds. 1. Jimmy broke left. Hard. The 190s flashed past. 50 feet separation. He felt the turbulence from their wake. Reversed his turn. The 190s were extending, diving away, using speed to escape. Let them go. Fuel conservation. Jimmy checked his instruments. Ammo, 2,900 rounds remaining. 500 rounds expended in 2 bursts. Fuel, 210 gallons. He'd been at combat power too long. The bombers were forming up for their run. Kiel Harbor visible ahead. U-boat pens. Unmistakable gray concrete structures. More bandits inbound. 0811 hours. The Kiel bomb run. Jimmy orbited below the overcast, 7,500 feet, watching. Driscoll was still with him, damaged but flying. Blue 4 had taken cannon hits on his tail. Elevator control compromised. Driscoll. Jimmy, I'm mushy. Elevator's not responding right. Jimmy. Can you stay in formation? Driscoll. Yeah, but I can't dogfight. Jimmy. Then don't. Stay high. Call out threats. The bombers began their run. Bomb bay doors open. Flak bursts. Thick. Black. Deadly. 2 B-17s took hits. 1 fell out of formation, trailing smoke. Crew bailing out. White parachutes blossoming. Ramrod control. Falcon elements. Bandits inbound from multiple vectors. 10-plus contacts descending through Angels 1-2. They're hitting the bombers during the run. Jimmy. Blue 3, copy. Where are they? Ramrod. You're 2 o'clock. High. 6 miles. Descending fast. Jimmy looked. Saw them. Silhouettes against the gray overcast. 6 BF-109s diving toward the bombers. He turned to intercept. Throttle. Full. War emergency power again. Airspeed 340 miles per hour. Climbing 8,000 feet. 8,500 feet. The 109 saw him. Split into 2 elements. 3 continued toward the bombers. 3 turned to engage Jimmy. Classic mutual support. Pin the escort. Hit the bombers.
The 3 109s dove on Jimmy, slashing attack. Cannon fire. Tracers crisscrossed. Jimmy broke hard left, rolled inverted, pulled. The lead 109 followed. The other 2 extended. They'd make another pass. 1-on-1 now. Turning fight. The 109 was lighter, tighter turn radius, but Jimmy had energy. He'd kept his speed up. Jimmy pulled hard. G-forces crushed him into his seat. Vision graying at the edges. Grunt against the G's, force blood back to his brain. Airspeed, 280 miles per hour. The P-47 was heavy, but responsive. The 109 turned inside him, getting angles. Jimmy reversed, snap roll right, pulled. The 109 overshot, committed to the turn, couldn't reverse fast enough. Jimmy had him. 6 o'clock position, 500 feet. Trigger squeeze, 3-second burst, 240 rounds. Hits all over the 109. Engine cowling shredded. Coolant streaming. White smoke. The 109 rolled inverted. Pilot bailed out. Canopy jettisoned. Figure tumbling clear. Chute opening. Aircraft impact. Field below. Ammo remaining. 2,660 rounds. Fuel. 180 gallons. Getting critical. Driscoll. Jimmy, you're 4 o'clock. 2 bandits. Jimmy turned. The other 2 109s from the previous engagement. They'd circled back. But now, Jimmy was slow. 240 miles per hour. Low energy. The 109s were fast. 350 miles per hour. Diving. Bad position. Jimmy. Blue 4, I'm going back into the clouds. Follow if you can. Driscoll. Negative. I can't fly instruments with this damage. I'm heading for the deck. Jimmy. Good luck. Jimmy nosed over. Dove toward the overcast ceiling above. Yes, above. He was below it. He needed to go back up into it. Altitude. 7,800 feet. 8,200. Climbing. The 109s followed, firing. 20mm rounds cracked past. 1 hit. Left wing. Metal tearing. Aileron damage. Control stick stiff. Jimmy entered the clouds at 8,600 feet. Gray. Instant blindness. He immediately began a hard turn. Standard rate but sustained. Heading change, 90 degrees. Then level. Then another 90-degree turn opposite direction. The 109s entered the clouds behind him, but without instruments for blind flying, they couldn't follow his maneuvering. They'd either climb back out or risk disorientation.
Jimmy held inside the clouds for 90 seconds, then descended back below 7,400 feet. Clear air. The 109s were gone. Retreated. But below, chaos. 0819 hours. The bombers had completed their run. Smoke rising from Kiel Harbor. Hits on the U-boat pens. But the cost. Jimmy counted 43 B-17s turning for home. 4 had gone down during the run. Flak and fighters. Now the Luftwaffe was pressing. Final attack before the bombers reached the relative safety of the North Sea. Ramrod control. All Falcon elements. Bandits converging on bomber stream. Estimate 12+ contacts. Jimmy looked. Saw them. Wolf 90s. 109s. Mixed formations. Coming from 3 directions. And above, finally, the rest of Falcon Squadron. Diving down through the clouds. Captain Pike's voice. All Falcon flights, engage, protect the bombers. The sky erupted. 20+ fighters, all within 2 square miles of sky. Tracers everywhere, smoke trails, aircraft spinning, diving, burning. Jimmy saw 190 lining up on a damaged B-17. Number 3 engine feathered, struggling. He turned toward it. Airspeed, 280 miles per hour. Not fast, but enough. The 190 was focused on the bomber. Target fixation again. Jimmy closed to 400 feet. Gun sight on target. Trigger. 4-second burst. 320 rounds. The 190 disintegrated. Fuel tank hit. Fireball. Pieces tumbling. The B-17 wobbled. Survived. Continued. Ammo. 2,340 rounds. Fuel. 145 gallons. Critical. Time to go home. Jimmy climbed toward the bomber stream, checked his 6, clear, checked his wings, holes, dents, but control surfaces responding. Driscoll's voice. Blue 3, Blue 4, I'm with the bombers heading home. You? Jimmy. Right behind you. The Luftwaffe broke off. Fuel exhaustion, ammunition exhaustion, losses. The remaining German fighters turned east, retreating. The bombers, 43 remaining, turned west. North Sea ahead, England beyond. Jimmy joined the formation, slotted into escort position, throttle back, economy cruise, fuel, 135 gallons. It would be tight.
Captain Pike. Blue 3, Blue lead. Where the hell were you? Jimmy. Below the clouds, sir. Engaging bandits. Pike. We'll discuss this on the ground. 0847 hours. Crossing the North Sea. Fuel, 98 gallons. Warning light illuminated. Jimmy calculated 30 minutes to Duxford at cruise power. Fuel burn rate, 110 gallons per hour at this setting. That meant 55 gallons needed. He'd make it, barely. But his left aileron was stiff, damage from the 20mm hit. Banking required extra force. And his engine was running rough. Cylinder head temperature fluctuating. Possible cylinder damage. 0903 hours. English coast. Relief. Duxford airfield.
15 miles. Fuel, 62 gallons. Jimmy keyed the radio. Duxford Tower, Falcon, Blue 3. Request straight-in approach. I'm low on fuel. Minor battle damage. Tower. Blue 3, you're cleared. Runway 24. Wind is 270 at 12 knots. Emergency equipment standing by. Jimmy. Copy. No emergency. Just want to get down. 0909 hours. Final approach. Gear down. Flaps down. Airspeed 140 miles per hour. The P-47 felt heavy, left wing wanting to drop due to aileron damage. Jimmy compensated with trim, threshold, flare, main wheels touched, tail wheels settled, rollout, brakes, gentle. The big Thunderbolt slowed. He taxied to his hardstand. Engine shut down, silence. Just the wind and the ticking of cooling metal. Crew Chief Morelli walked around the aircraft, stopped, stared. Lieutenant, how many holes? Jimmy climbed out, looked. Morelli counted. 14. No, 16. Jesus. 1 through the rudder, 3 in the left wing, 2 in the fuselage behind the cockpit. 1 missed your head by a foot. Jimmy. She held together. Morelli. This time, Captain Pike walked up, face unreadable. Harwell. Debrief. Now. 1100 hours. Debriefing. Present. Captain Pike, Squadron Intelligence Officer, and the 6 returning Falcon pilots. 3 had been shot down or diverted with damage. Harwell, explain what you did.
Jimmy stood, explained, descended into clouds, used radar vectors, positioned below overcast to ambush enemy fighters attacking bombers during the run. Confirmed kills, 3, 1 BF-109, 1 FW-190 during the first interception, 1 FW-190 protecting a damaged B-17 during egress. Witnesses? Lieutenant Driscoll. I saw the first 109. Harwell got him clean. Another pilot. I saw the last 190. Fireball. No question. The officer noted this. Pike, you disobeyed my direct order to maintain visual contact with the formation. Yes, sir. You entered clouds without clearance, risking collision and disorientation. Yes, sir. Pike leaned back. Long silence. The bomber group commander just called. 47 B-17s went to Kiel. 43 came back. 4 losses, all to flak or fighters during the bomb run. 0 losses during the return leg. Jimmy nodded. Pike. He said his crews reported a lone P-47 below the overcast, engaging enemy fighters that would have massacred them while they were regrouping. They counted 6 German aircraft downed or driven off by that one P-47. Pike looked at Jimmy. Was that you? I had help. Blue 4 engaged 2 fighters. The bomber crews are calling you the Ghost. They didn't see you until you were shooting. Neither did the Germans. Silence. Pike, I should ground you for disobeying orders, but I'm not going to. Pike stood, walked to the map board, drew the cloud layers, drew bomber formation, drew German attack vectors. You proved something. Weather doesn't have to be a disadvantage. If a pilot has the skill and the balls, it's concealment. He turned to the room. Starting tomorrow, we're training this. Instrument flight, radar coordination, cloud tactics. Every pilot in this squadron will learn what Harwell just demonstrated. He looked at Jimmy. You're going to teach it. That's an order. Yes, sir. And for God's sake, don't get yourself killed before you do.
That evening, Squadron Bar. The pilots who'd flown the mission gathered. Lieutenant Driscoll raised a glass. To Jimmy Harwell, the coward who hides in clouds. Laughter, but respectful. Another pilot. How the hell did you see anything in there? Jimmy, I didn't. That's the point. I used instruments. If you trust the needles, you don't need to see. What about the Germans? They have instruments too. They're trained for visual combat. Most Luftwaffe pilots don't practice instrument flight. We do, or we will. October 15th, 1943. Jimmy received the Distinguished Flying Cross. Citation. For extraordinary achievement while participating in aerial flight over Kiel, Germany on 9 October 1943, Lieutenant Harwell displayed exceptional airmanship and tactical innovation, resulting in the destruction of 3 enemy aircraft and the protection of friendly bomber formations under adverse weather conditions. No mention of disobeying orders. No mention of the controversy. But within the squadron, the story spread. Harwell's Cloud Tactic. November 1943. Fighter Command updated tactical doctrine. New section. Weather as tactical advantage. Key points.
Qualified pilots may utilize cloud cover for concealment during escort missions. Radar coordination mandatory. No cloud penetration without ground control contact. Instrument proficiency requirements increased. Minimum 20 hours hood time before operational deployment. 2-ship minimum for cloud tactics. Solo prohibited. December 1943. 78th Fighter Group established dedicated instrument training program. Jimmy Harwell, now promoted to first lieutenant, served as primary instructor. Pilots practiced blind formation flight, radar vector intercepts, cloud entry and exit procedures, unusual attitude recovery without visual reference. By February 1944, every operational pilot in 78th Fighter Group had completed the training. Statistical analysis, declassified in 1988. Before October 1943, bomber losses during adverse weather missions averaged 8.3% per mission.
After widespread adoption of cloud escort tactics, March 1944 onward, bomber losses during adverse weather missions dropped to 4.1%. Captured German documents revealed Luftwaffe tactical adjustments. December 1943 directive. American escort fighters are now exploiting cloud cover for surprise attacks. Pilots are advised to maintain heightened vigilance during weather operations. Visual scanning below overcast is mandatory before engaging bomber formations. The tactic worked because it violated expectations. Once the Germans adapted, its effectiveness decreased. But by then, American fighter range had extended. P-51 Mustangs arrived, and the air superiority equation shifted. But for 6 months, October 1943 through March 1944, cloud tactics saved lives. Modern military. The U.S. Air Force Weapons School at Nellis AFB teaches environmental exploitation tactics, including weather-based concealment. Instructors reference the Kiel raid as a historical example. Jimmy Harwell flew 87 combat missions between June 1943 and April 1945. Total confirmed kills, 7 aircraft, 3 on the Kiel mission, 4 more over the following 18 months. He was shot down once. February 1944, over France, bailed out, evaded capture with French resistance help, returned to England 3 weeks later. Promoted to captain, March 1944, given command of a flight within 84th Squadron. Final mission, April 16, 1945, escort for bombers hitting remaining German positions. Uneventful. The war in Europe ended 3 weeks later. Jimmy returned to Iowa, August 1945, married his high school sweetheart, Margaret, had 3 children, ran the family farm, 180 acres, same land his father worked. He didn't talk much about the war, not because of trauma, he'd been lucky, survived, but because farming required forward focus, not backward. 1979 interview conducted by aviation historian Dr. Robert Mrozek. Mrozek, you violated direct orders during the Kiel mission. Any regrets? Harwell, I regret that I had to, but the situation demanded it. Doctrine couldn't adapt fast enough. Someone had to try something different. Mrozek, were you scared? Harwell, of course, but fear is just information. It tells you the stakes. Then you do the job anyway. Mrozek, what do you want people to remember about that mission? Harwell, that 47 bombers went in, 43 came home. That's 400 men who got to see their families again. That matters more than tactics or medals. The full mission report for the October 9, 1943 Kiel raid was classified secret until 1987. Why? The radar coordination techniques Jimmy used were considered sensitive, revealing the capabilities and limitations of Allied ground-based radar. Additionally, the tactical doctrine that emerged from the mission was classified to prevent enemy awareness. 1987, documents declassified. Historians began detailed analysis. Jimmy's aircraft, P-47D serial 428545 Cornhusker, did not survive the war. Damaged beyond repair in a landing accident, June 1944. Different pilot, non-combat, scrapped. But a P-47D-30RA, serial 44-20371, restored by the Commemorative Air Force, flies in 78th Fighter Group markings. Cornhusker replica painted on the cowling in Jimmy's honor. Modern recognition. The USAF Weapons School includes Case Study 7, Harwell's Cloud Intercept, in its tactical development course. Key lessons. Doctrine is a baseline, not a limitation. Environmental factors can be assets. Calculated risk, informed by skill, enables innovation. James Arthur Harwell died October 3, 2003, age 82, heart failure. Buried in Grundy County, Iowa, next to his wife, Margaret. Military honors at the funeral. Honor Guard from the 78th Fighter Group Association. Veterans who'd flown with him, now old men themselves. His youngest son, Michael, said at the service, "Dad never called himself a hero. He said he was just a farm kid who learned to trust his instruments. But those instruments and his trust brought men home alive. That's heroic enough." Final accounting, October 9, 1943, Kiel raid. 47 B-17s deployed. 43 returned. 4 lost to flak and fighters during the bomb run. 0 lost during the return leg. 470 crewmen deployed. 430 returned. 40 KIA or MIA. 7 German fighters confirmed destroyed by Jimmy Harwell and Paul Driscoll. Unknown number damaged or driven off. The bomber crews called him the Ghost. His squadron called him the coward who hid in clouds. History calls him an innovator, but the 430 men who came home called him something else, the reason they survived.
They mocked the farm boy from Iowa for flying into thunderstorms during training, called it cowardice dressed up as tactics, until October 9, 1943, when 60 Luftwaffe fighters learned, too late, that invisibility beats firepower and preparation beats doctrine. Jimmy Harwell proved that environmental awareness, understanding weather not as obstacle but as tool, could overcome numerical inferiority and tactical surprise. His willingness to trust instruments over instinct, to navigate blind while others demanded visual certainty, saved lives. The 16 holes in Cornhusker told one story. Combat is violent, unforgiving, chaotic. The 430 men who returned from Kiel told another. One pilot, thinking differently, can change the outcome. Today, every fighter pilot learns instrument flight, radar coordination, environmental exploitation. These aren't innovations, they're fundamentals. But in 1943, they were heresy. Jimmy Harwell's legacy isn't the medals or the kills. It's the quiet truth that saved hundreds of lives. Sometimes the best way to win isn't to fight harder, it's to fight smarter, to see what others dismiss, to trust what others fear, to hide in the clouds and strike from the gray. Stories like Jimmy Harwell stayed classified for 44 years. This channel exists to bring them to light. The tactics, the pilots, the moments when individual courage and innovation changed the course of history. Subscribe to ensure these stories and the men who lived them are never forgotten.